Welcome to the Insomnia Project. Sit back, relax, and listen as we have a conversation about the mundane, the ordinary, some would say the boring. One thing we can promise you is that our conversation will be less than fascinating so that you can feel free to relax, drift off, or just listen. Thank you for joining us. We do hope you will listen and sleep. I'm your host, Marco Timpano, and I am currently in beautiful British Columbia in Vancouver, and I have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, Christina Patterson. Welcome to the Insomnia Project.
Thank you for having me, Marco.
Christina, you and I have performed together on many stages, and you are on this side of the country, and I'm in Toronto, and whenever I'm out west, I always am grateful that you and I can connect.
Me too. Me too.
And there's a couple of things that I associate with you, Christina. And I'm sure like everyone has sort of something that they associate with certain friends of theirs or certain colleagues. With you, it is the majestic starfish. And I think it comes from a time where you gave me a little stuffed starfish with little, they weren't googly eyes, but they were eyes that were looking in different directions. So I want to ask you, tell me about a time where you encountered or dealt with a starfish in any way, shape, or form.
Well, growing up in Victoria, British Columbia, as a child, there were still many, many starfish along the coast, off of the beaches.
Would those be the five-pointed starfish or the ones with many, I guess you'd call them arms?
I would call them arms. But yes, they were the five-pointed sea stars. And they came in magnificent colors of purples and pinks.
Wow.
And they were just so lovely to look at from the beaches.
Your favorite color would be
I would have to say purple.
The purple starfish.
So unusual looking from the shore, looking into the beaches and seeing these beautiful purple flowers in the water. I also remember being in grade 11 and having to cut up a starfish in biology class and not being happy about that.
You know, they say if you cut one of the arms of a starfish off, another starfish, or I don't know if I'm wording this right. Help me out, Christina.
They say that another arm will grow back eventually.
So the amputated arm will create its own starfish or clone, I guess, of the other starfish. Interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah. I was under the impression that the starfish itself could grow another arm, but boy, if that is the case, that the arm could grow another starfish. Wow.
Okay, maybe that's where I'm mistaken. So the larger starfish that had the arm amputated would just grow a new arm, whereas the severed arm would just probably crinkle up and die.
Probably get eaten by a crab.
Okay. Interesting, because the starfish eats crustaceans like clams and whatnot.
That's right. Mussels and mollusks, all sorts of things.
They kind of wrap their arms around the clam, let's say, and then work really hard to pry it open.
That's right. They've got tiny little suction cups on their arms that they use, and their strength is incredible. If you were to try to pry open something like an oyster or whatnot on the beach, you would need an instrument,
of course,
or a device. But in fact, the starfish just use time and strength and their wit.
There you go. See, the humble starfish and its strength. Since we are here on the West Coast in Vancouver, and well known for its beauty
Mm-hmm.
and its verdant colors and the strong greens and trees and whatnot, and some ferns, majestic ferns that I've never seen elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You see out here.
It's amazing out here. I think one of the reasons that I gave you that starfish years ago was probably because when you grow up on an island, it doesn't feel right to be anywhere else.
Really? Tell me more.
Well, I had a fantastic time in Toronto.
Okay.
I met so many great people, so many friends, and friends like you that have lasted for however many years it's been now. It's true that when you grow up on an island, being in anywhere else, not having the fresh sea air surrounding you and filling your lungs all the time, it stays with you, and you're drawn back to the island.
It calls you back in a way.
It calls you back.
There you go.
Yeah. And in fact, even being on the island, if you've lived near the ocean, being inland, you start to feel the need to be back on the water.
Right.
And I think I actually ended up making sort of a themed wedding basket for you and Amanda as well, with all sorts of West Coast things like Starfish, which, if you remember, it prompted a song that you improvised on my guitar about Starfish.
I do. Unfortunately, I don't have the guitar, so you will not be hearing that. I do want to mention that you have a theater company out here called Launchpad Theater Company.
That's right.
Tell me about that. What is the mandate of your theater company?
Well, my husband David and I,
who you may remember on episode 20, I had the privilege of interviewing David, and we got into pencils. We got so in depth with pencils that we never got to speak about the eraser he likes. So we'll have to have him on a future show where we discuss that particular eraser.
I think he would love that. I know he would love that.
So tell us about your theater company.
Well, our company is called Launchpad, and David and I create a good deal of site-specific theater.
Oh, I understand you do stuff in castles. Is that correct? That's
correct. In Victoria, we have a little castle called Craigdarroch Castle.
Ooh.
And if you can imagine having a castle as your set.
My goodness.
In all of your shows, with the audience following you from scene to scene, room to room. It's a kingdom for a stage.
Oh, wow. So, Christina, I'm hoping one day, and maybe you and David can make this happen, perhaps Launchpad Theater Company can make this happen. We can record one of the podcasts inside this castle.
I have every confidence that we can make that happen. You wouldn't believe how beautiful this little castle is.
Tell me about this castle. Well, this is for our listeners, is in Victoria, British Columbia.
That's right. It was the home of Robert and Joan Dunsmuir. Robert Dunsmuir was a coal baron who had coal mines up and down the island. And
I had no idea there was coal on the island.
There's a good deal of history and folk stories about coal miners who rabble-roused to get unions and got themselves killed.
I find that fascinating.
It's super fascinating.
Because when you think of the coal industry in Canada, my mind anyways goes immediately to the Maritimes and the coal mining that happens out there. Right. I never think of the West Coast because for me, its association with lumber is so strong that I immediately, when I think of our natural resources from out west, in particular in British Columbia, I immediately think lumber. But please tell me more about this coal baron.
So Robert Dunsmuir was a Scottish coal baron who lived on the island and had coal mines throughout. He decided that his home should be a castle and began building. He had trainloads of wood brought in from Chicago Chicago.
Really?
Because it was white oak, I
see.
believe.
Okay.
White cedar, maybe. I can't remember.
Okay. Well, some sort of white lumber.
Trained in 4 years of building
Wow.
with giant stones and turrets and beautiful, beautiful wood, which you're not supposed to touch when you're in there.
I'll be sure not to touch it.
Good. He actually died before the castle was completed.
There you go.
And his wife, Joan, moved in with their many children, some of whom are very well renowned. One of the daughters of one of the granddaughters, maybe, Dola Dunsmuir, was a comrade of a Tallulah Bankhead.
Oh,
she was one of her girls.
Wow.
She palled around with her, and Tallulah Bankhead used to come to Victoria and spend parties there and eat and drink and revel. One of the other daughters, Kathleen, was in one of the very first Hollywood films filmed in Victoria, BC. And it's said that the reason that she was in it was because of her parents' money being able to help to finance the film.
Wow.
It was quite a flop, apparently.
Oh, I see.
But she was able to get a bit of fame as a result of that. And then, of course, James Dunsmuir became the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia.
So this Dunsmuir family not only had built this beautiful castle, which your theater company does some site-specific shows that I can't wait to come and see. But they have a long history of interesting sort of connections to various fields in Canada and abroad. There's something very peaceful about castles that are no longer used as castles. So, for example, like Buckingham Palace is obviously a palace that is currently used by the monarchy there. But when you see an abandoned castle in Europe, or you see a castle that's sort of taken on a new life, there's something very peaceful and serene. Would you say that about this particular castle as well?
Yes, absolutely. The castle is almost like a second home to us now.
Wow.
And
what a nice place to have a second home.
It is. It's a little bit spooky in some of the rooms. They say that there aren't ghosts there.
Well, that's good, because I prefer not to go to a place that has any sort of spirits in it, benevolent or malevolent.
Reggie, I just sold my car online.
Let's go, Grandpa. Wait, you did?
Yep, on Carvana. Just put in the license plate, answered a few questions, got an offer in minutes. Easier than setting up that new digital picture frame.
You don't say.
Yeah, they're even picking it up tomorrow. Talk about fast.
Wow, way to go. So, about that picture frame.
Forget about it. Until Carvana makes one, I'm not interested.
Car selling made easy. On
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
I do want to talk about rain. We talked on an earlier episode about snow and how Canadians all are very aware of different types of snow. And I think one of the reasons why the vegetation and the flora is so verdant and so beautiful here is because you do receive quite a bit of rain. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
So tell me about different types of rain that you experience for any of our listeners who may be from desert nations that don't experience a lot of rain. Tell me about different rain that you experience here.
If you love rain, you will love the West Coast.
Okay.
There are all sorts of different kinds of rain, starting from little tiny mists that you don't really notice that you're feeling until you arrive at your destination with little drops of rain on your hair.
So it's like fine mist in the air that you sort of walk through and you don't even realize it because it's so fine?
Yeah, that's right. And we have, of course, more of a thicker, fuller rain that comes down and bounces off of the sidewalks. We have the rain that turns sideways that no umbrella can protect you from.
Oh, I need to know about. So this rain hits you like, would you say like vertically? Like
Practically vertically. Wow. And the benefits of the amount of rain that we have is our lush green rainforests. And for all of your listeners, I would recommend being here at some point in your life and going over to Vancouver Island and going up island to places like Ucluelet and Tofino, where not only is the rain charging the air and the trees.
When you say charging the air, what do you mean by that?
It means that it energizes everything and refreshes everything. It cleanses the air. I feel like we have the cleanest air
as a result.
And then when you're on the coastline and the storms come, it's people think they don't like rain, and perhaps maybe going to work or getting yourself to and from places, it's a bit inconvenient. But if you just commit to that rain and allow yourself to get wet and allow yourself to enjoy the recharging and walk out to the coastline and watch the waves and feel the negative ions entering your lungs, it's such an amazing thing. Your cheeks get rosy. And the things you can imagine that are happening out on the ocean when these waves are crashing up on the shore, it's so romantic and frightening and dramatic.
I find it so refreshing to speak to someone who can enjoy the rain, or at least give perspective on the rain like you did. I know that there is a saying that my grandmother would say in her dialect of Italian when it would rain and the sun is out. I don't know if there's a term for that particular phenomenon. Have you ever experienced it where it'll be a sunny day, but rain will still come down?
It's happening a lot lately. And I don't know what it's called, but I do know that the first thing I do is look for the rainbow.
Okay. When that happens, of course, my grandmother would say in her dialect, si patinan le strise, which translates to the witches are combing their hair. And so as they comb their hair in the sun, rain would fall down. So it's my favorite rain is when it's sunny and it rains, because it reminds me of not only that unusual saying, but my grandmother telling me this particular saying in her dialect.
That's great. Now I'm going to think about that. But make sure you look for the rainbow as well.
Of course. Is it 7 colors in the rainbow? 7.
Roy G. Biv.
Is that the acronym that you use?
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
Wow. Which is your favorite of those colors?
Well, the amazing thing about certain rainbows is that you'll always see the red and the orange and the yellow and the green. But then the indigo and violet, it has to be a certain amount of sun and a certain amount of rain to make those happen.
I didn't know that.
Once again, I would have to say purple.
Oh, there you go.
Because if you're seeing the purple on the rainbow, then that's a bright rainbow.
And
you can see double rainbows.
Oh, yes. The old double rainbow.
And then if you can see both ends of the rainbow, that's a real treat.
Sure. You know, Christina, all this talk about rain reminds me of what happened last night. You and I and David went to a restaurant, and we had umbrellas with us. And as we were leaving the restaurant, I was going to walk out without my umbrella because it stopped raining. And you said, oh, don't forget that umbrella.
That's right, Marco. From being a man from Toronto, your experience with rain is in depth. And I felt like I needed to guide you.
And so you did. And I thank you for that. Is there a rain accoutrement that you never leave the house with, living out here during the rainy times?
You should actually never leave the house without an umbrella. However, you can sort of get overconfident and leave the house in sunshine, and within minutes it's a downpour.
Wow.
And that can happen at any time of the year. And
really?
They actually say in Victoria and Vancouver that you're going to get 4 seasons all in one day.
And does that happen?
It does. It's not going to snow in the summer or in the winter most of the time.
Oh, I see.
But you do leave in the morning with a bit of a chill in the air, a bit of frost on the ground. And by evening time, you're warm and toasty. And then by nightfall, it's freezing cold.
Sure.
You go through all sorts of seasons in a day here. And I would recommend not leaving the house with an umbrella. But then again, sometimes you just have to fly by the seat of your pants.
And wing it and hope for the best, right? True.
Live on a wing and a prayer.
True in life as it is with your rain accoutrements. You know, thinking back, I've never had galoshes.
Me neither.
I don't even really know what galoshes are. Are they like rain slippers? Like, what's a galosh?
As far as I know, a galosh is rain pants or rain boots.
Is it a rain boot? Like,
it's like big, tall rain boots.
Oh, that's what galoshes are.
Yeah. And they're great if you're mucking around in puddles. They're not great when you're going to an office job.
Well, I guess I've never had rain galoshes. I guess they're just called galoshes. But I have seen these rain boots that have handles. Have you seen them? They sort of have like almost like little rubber pail handles on either end of the boot that help you sort of put on the rain boot.
I think that the people that work in industries where those boots are almost required,
you see,
those are kind of important. If you can imagine being on, say, a fish boat and having to pull your boots on with wet gloves or wet hands, and they're so industrial.
See, I had no idea that. I just thought they were a fashionable thing, but obviously they have a practical purpose.
Right.
Have you ever been on a fish boat?
Well, I've been on a fish boat, but not out at sea.
I see.
I unfortunately have a lot of motion sickness, so I'm afraid that my husband David's dad is a fisherman, and David grew up on fish boats. And so when I met David and met his dad, we went and spent a bit of time on the Vindicator.
Oh, what a great name for a boat.
That's
the
right.
Vindicator. What a great name for a superhero, a boat, and, a lifestyle.
Yeah. And his dad has had a few different boats since I've known him, and I've been on all of them, from the Makia, which is a sailboat, and the Breaker, which is basically a lifeboat that he turned into put an outboard motor on it.
Oh, neat.
Little pleasure boat. But I have to be honest, I don't think I would do very well on an actual fish boat out at sea.
How are you with ferries?
You know, the ferries are so large and weighty that they actually don't really give you an indication of the waves. If you are on a ferry and you start feeling seasick, then you know that it's really, really, really rocky out there. And in fact, tomorrow we'll
Right.
head back over to Victoria, and who knows the amount of times that ferries get canceled or delayed because of
the weather.
storming weather
Right.
here. When you're on the island, you risk being on that island when it's stormy and weathery. There may not be flying out or taking
Right.
a ferry over to the mainland.
Wow. Have you ever seen wildlife when you're on a ferry?
I have, yes. Seals and otters. I've seen killer whales.
Wow. On the ferry?
That's right.
Oh.
They're very rare from the ferry.
Okay.
They're smart. They stay away.
Sure.
But you can see them off in the distance, sometimes even breaching the surface and jumping right out of the water.
Wow. Well, that'll be a conversation for another time, possibly in a castle with you and David. Christina, I want to thank you so much for being part of the Insomnia Project. If our listeners want to find out more about what Launchpad Theater Company is up to, they can go to www.bringingyouthestars.com, and we'll have that on the podcast page. As always, the Insomnia Project is produced by Drumcast Productions, and we're privileged to be broadcasting from Vancouver.